Welcome back. This section is called Responding Positively to Behaviors, the Path from Independence to Dependence. I'm Pamela D Wilson, caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. This begins our module on behaviors, how to respond positively to behaviors and how to manage them, especially if you have loved ones who sundown, who get agitated, who are anxious, who exhibit a variety of behaviors. Behaviors are not always mandatory, I say, in Alzheimer's or dementia. Some parents, some individuals never have any behaviors. Others, it seems like behaviors are a day in, day out event. So let's get started. I'll take myself off camera. We'll go to the first slide. So by now you probably can recite the housekeeping, but I'll go through it very quickly. I use elderly parent or elderly parents, substitute that term with whoever you are caring for. Remember, the outline for this module is in the course materials for the programs. Print the slide handout so that you can follow along, make notes, write questions. The ellipses, the dot, dot, dot in the slides are purposeful so that you are following along with me and so that you are learning. Let's talk about the objectives of this section. At the end of responding positively to behaviors, you should be able to summarize how a transition to becoming dependent on others for care can be frustrating for the care recipient. You should be able to identify why the behaviors of dementia are frustrating for caregivers. You will also be able to illustrate why elders with dementia are placed in care communities. This section in particular talks about the path from independence to dependence. You should be able to summarize the feelings of elderly parents who are transitioning to relying on others for care and identify with the sense of frustration that results for both the elderly parent and the caregiver. You probably already know that. You should be able to relate to the idea of having a diagnosis that will advance that has no cure, which may be difficult for us if we are not the person diagnosed. Let's talk about memory loss frustrations. Imagine this. You've been independent all of your life, and suddenly you have a diagnosis that is not necessarily physical in nature, so you don't really feel it, but it's cognitive in nature, meaning that your brain cannot understand what's going on, or really even that there's a problem. This diagnosis that you can't understand, called Alzheimer's disease or dementia, robs you of the ability to do things you once did automatically without thinking. As this diagnosis progresses, you become less independent and then totally dependent on another person or persons for all of your daily care. You become dependent on someone else for all aspects of your daily existence. How would you feel? Fearful, frustrated, overwhelmed, angry, helpless, hopeless, pessimistic, probably all of the above. This is how your elderly parent with memory loss may feel. As we talked about earlier in another section called The Importance of Diagnosing, it's the idea of being okay one day and not okay the next that is challenging for our brains and our minds to accept. This is because Alzheimer's disease or dementia usually does not begin with a physical manifestation like a heart attack or something like that, but a mind or cognitive manifestation. The other side of this is that you become an overnight caregiver for an elderly parent who just discovered that they have dementia, or something else happened to cause that. Your life has been tossed upside down with all of these new responsibilities. You're not sure what to do. You don't know how this path is going to look 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now. All you know is it's easy to see why all of this can be so frustrating for you and for your elderly parent. As memory loss progresses, things change significantly. When memory loss is diagnosed, there is a period where an elderly parent or the person diagnosed may try to make sense of the diagnosis. How did it happen? What caused this? How long have I had it? They may ask a lot of questions. Understanding the disease can be challenging, especially if the diagnosis occurs well into the course of the disease, if it's not caught early, instead of in the early stages. The benefit of diagnosing memory loss early, as we've talked, is that the concept of having Alzheimer's or dementia may be easier for the individual to relate to current symptoms they might be seeing and the impact of the progression of memory loss today and into the future. Individuals who live alone, who don't notice symptoms because of infrequent contact with others, and the other people might mention concerns, but these people who live alone are very vulnerable and much at a disadvantage until some type of accident happens or some cause that results in an intervention. So people help, doctors are interested, a diagnosis is mentioned, family is contacted. Isolated individuals may not notice signs of memory loss until an event like a car accident or the electricity being shut off for non-payment, something like that. The involvement with others is that catalyst. It's that cause that results in a memory loss diagnosis and the potential for treatment. If family's not involved, a best case scenario is an actively involved friend or someone else who contacts Adult County Protective Services, and possibly the appointment of a guardian and a conservator are the result. Obviously, best case scenarios are when family is involved. We are all afraid of memory loss. Memory loss is one of those diagnoses that I think we dread and we try not to talk about, and we certainly hope that it never is going to happen to us. People with memory loss worry about having a trusted person to care for them. Having a cognitive diagnosis results in vulnerability to abuse by family members, abuse by other people. This is why so many elderly people living alone are taken advantage of by others who have bad intentions. The idea of greater reliance on others is one fear of memory loss. There are so many fears. Greater reliance on one or more family members supports the importance of having a plan for care, both short and long term. Family relationships and regular interactions become critical to the safety, well-being, and quality and daily life of an elderly parent. With that idea of greater reliance comes the idea of purposely supporting independence. It's a subject that I stress in all of these programs. Managing the day-to-day and the diagnosis is as equally important as focusing on and supporting a care-forward environment. Talked about this before, but a care-forward environment focuses on tasks and activities that the individual with memory loss can still do for him or herself and promotes this independence, these activities, as long as possible. In addition to the person with memory loss having fears, family caregivers have fears. They fear the progression of memory loss that will be accompanied by more involvement, more time commitment, and unpredictability. One of the initially important concepts of helping elderly parents with memory loss is creating a safe home environment, combined with sensory changes, and these are hearing, smelling, eyesight, touch, that result from aging are potential safety hazards inside of a home. When possible, remove rugs, cords that may be tripping hazards. Look at other rooms like the bathroom, the kitchen, and the bedroom that can pose safety concerns, because it really isn't until something happens that we think, oh, we could have predicted that. My father was a perfect example. After my mom passed away, he lived alone in the family home, and their bedroom had a double bed in the middle, and on each side of the bed were these nightstands that looked perfectly harmless. But one day my dad was getting out of bed and he got a little dizzy, so he kind of rolled over and he fell to the floor. Well, when he fell to the floor, he hit his temple on the sharp edge of one of these nightstands, and blood was everywhere. It was gushing. He had to go get stitches because it was so bad. My sister and I looked at that night table and we're like, we could remove it, but why do that? So instead, what we did was we got some material that was cushioned, and we got some bubble wrap. And so on both of the nightstands next to my dad's double bed, on the sharp edges, we took that material and we took the bubble wrap and we taped it over. Now, did it look silly? Absolutely. But my dad wanted those nightstands in the bedroom because they were a long-standing memory. So it was a way for us to improve safety for him. We also got him one of those I've fallen and I can't get up buttons. And we looked at other areas in the house that were potential safety risks that we would have never thought of. And we may have moved furniture, we may have taken throw rugs out, gotten rid of long extension cords, anything that could be a tripping or a hazard risk, we got rid of. And we also put in grab bars and double stair railings and a lot of other things that would make the home safe for my father. And my father didn't have dementia. It was just accidents happen in the home and elderly people happen in the home. And if we can figure out how to avoid them, it's a best case scenario. Let's go on to the next slide. So this slide talks about visual clues. Visual clues are helpful for communication as memory loss advances. We may take for granted the ability to use a microwave. When an elderly person with memory loss might look at the microwave panel and not remember which buttons to push or how to operate the microwave. Labeling or pasting photos of images on cabinets, doors, and drawers can be helpful when visual recognition skills remain. So this is the idea of taking a picture of maybe like some canned vegetables and putting them on the outside cabinet drawer of where those are. Same thing with like plates, cups, silverware, just to make it a little easier so that the person can look at the cabinet and understand what's in there before they even open that drawer. Calendars, schedules, and large clocks help with day and time orientation. Posting a schedule near a calendar or a telephone is helpful so that an elderly parent knows when to expect your visit or your phone call, or when they have an activity coming up that they are going to participate in. The schedule can reduce the number of phone calls to you to ask about an event, a schedule, when you're going to visit, a doctor appointment, things like that. Having that schedule and that routine gives your elderly parent peace of mind about what happens today, tomorrow, or what might be going on a week from now. Another idea is hanging out clothing to wear each day and marking hangers in a closet with the day of the week to help orient a parent to the day of the week and what to wear each day. Putting a sign on the hamper that says, take off clothes and put them in here before bed may help to ensure a parent wears clean clothing each day. Signs can be placed on the bathroom mirror with reminders to shower or take a bath, brush teeth, brush hair, so that a daily hygiene routine is completed. All of these support activities that an elderly parent can complete are so important to maintaining independence. Self-confidence and self-esteem are supported by creating these list of reminders. And I want to share the true story of a married couple of mine that were clients. They were married, they never had any children, no family nearby. And like in many situations, I was contacted by friends who lived in the same complex, who experienced concerns. And in this case, the husband was the caregiver for a wife, and he truly was lost. Her dementia had progressed to a point where she needed prompting for everything, and he didn't know how to do it. He was also very uncomfortable to bathe her because he was worried that she would fall or something would happen. She had some behaviors of agitation, but it was kind of because he followed her around and he was so worried about what was going to happen with her. So I became a care manager for the situation and had staff that went in, and we did many of these things that I just described because we were not there all day. So for a week, we would set out clean clothing on hangers, label them Monday through Sunday, and put them in her closet so that when she got up in the morning, he would know to take out that hanger, those clothes, and help her get dressed. There were days of the week that we would give her a bath because she liked to bathe. There were days where we cooked meals and other days where we cooked meals for days that we would not be there. Our goal was to make it as easy as possible for him to take care of her and to stay there because they really did not want to leave that apartment. And they were in a good situation where they did have the money to pay for care. So some of these things that I may be describing to you may sound extensive. They may sound crazy, like, why would I ever go to that extent? But believe it or not, in some situations, let's say you're the only caregiver and your parents don't want to leave the home, you have to find ways to help your dad or your mom care for the other person. And sometimes it does involve these types of detailed systems and processes to make it all work. Let's continue. Sensory declines. So declines in any one of the senses, hearing, vision, smell, and touch, has a negative effect on the ability of people to interact with others and to communicate. When we can't hear or see a person talking to us, for example, somebody on the television, we lose the ability to determine what that communication is about, whether it's positive or negative. A loss of hearing makes conversations, telephone calls, listening to the radio, or watching television frustrating. Vision loss complicates communications and feelings of safety. I have had blind clients who did not have dementia, who were 100% comfortable navigating in their home and remaining independent. But when you add the component of memory loss to blindness, can you imagine getting out of bed and forgetting where you put your eyeglasses, dentures, or hearing aids? Even adding the component of memory loss to hearing and vision loss adds frustration. By this time, you have dementia, you can't see, you can't hear, you're having all kinds of problems. You're probably losing other mental skills. Because that ability to concentrate and complete a single activity without becoming distracted may be difficult for those of us who don't have dementia. The ability to manage, organize, and complete activities become more difficult. Mail may be open, but bills not paid. One activity begins and is never finished. Early in the disease, one or all of these may be frustrating. As memory loss progresses, frustration about these events may happen with an inability to verbally describe the concern. Your parent can't tell you what's wrong. The inability to voice concerns in a manner that others can understand can result in more agitation and more behaviors. So let's summarize this section. Becoming dependent on another person for care, being diagnosed with a chronic disease, taking prescriptions for health, any change that complicates daily life and a routine are stressful, no matter what our age or situation in life. People who are diagnosed with dementia, they are robbed of the opportunity to make it better. There is no possibility of return to their prior state of health. This realization can result in fear and panic. The goal for all caregivers is to support elderly parents remaining as independent as possible for as long as possible. Taking this action supports self-esteem in elderly parents and reduces fears about the time that elderly parents will become more dependent on children for care. Through the actions of creating a safe environment, using those visual clues that we discussed, and understanding how the loss of senses can make communication more different, we as caregivers can become more compassionate and understanding of the fears of our elderly parents, our fears as caregivers, and the progression of memory loss. I'm Pamela D Wilson. Thank you for being with me for this section, Independence to Dependence. I'll see you in the next webinar.